high above Aos Island's skies, a feathered menace soars and spies. When its eyes lock on, it dives in hard. Its prey is left dead and charred. Yet this fiery hunter continues to bombard. As you may know, Talonflame is the first speedster you get in the game, and all its moves exemplify the same things: high mobility and high damage. No crit nonsense like Absol's Pursuit or Night Slash shenanigans, no poking force before going in like Gengar's Sludge X combos or Shadow Ball Dream Eater timing stuff, and no sustained offensive pressure or a stupidly bad leveling curve like Zero Aura's Spark Wall Charge combos. Just cover a huge amount of distance with your moves and burst people down while you're at it. Simple compared to the rest, but also the most effective and consistent out of them all. Talonflame also benefits from some of the highest scaling moves in the game, paired with a colossal attack set of 681 at the maximum cap, being the highest out of all Pokemon so far in Pokemon Unite. Which means, once you dive into a fight, it's really not that hard to get a frag or two. Of course, I merely jest. But before we continue praising or criticizing this borb, let's talk about some of the key points, specifically being the early game. So, before you get to soar around like friggin' Valstrax, you're stuck as a fletchling from level 1 to 4 and Fletchinder from 5 to 6, which isn't the worst considering you're usually fed with EXP straight from the jungle, but those first to second minutes are crucial in determining how much of a lead you have over your opponents. Talonflame's playstyle, much like other speedsters, is all about getting ganks, which means ganging up on lone enemies with your teammates, not to be confused with flanked, although ganks are really good when you flank. The more enemies you get during the first bee spawns at 8 minutes and 50 seconds, the easier it is for you to subsequently gank afterwards. Your acrobatic skill is really good for taking down bees, doing large amounts of AoE while Aerial Ace plus boosted attacks, or Flame Charge finishes them off, allowing you to get as much farm as possible due to the high execution damage, further solidifying the lead that you get. If you get the enemy jungler, even better because you gain their buffs and their EXP. Again, you've probably already gorged yourself on buff mons, so for the most part that early game phase should end at around 8 to 7 minutes. Once that happens, prepare to whoosh around the map. It's really just instantaneous destruction the moment you launch yourself into battle, and bonus emotional damage if you're using attack weight.
Emotional damage!
Moves are what make or break a character in Pokemon Unite, and in my opinion, Talonflame definitely gives you the most bang for your buck. For one move slot you get a short dash, and for the other, you get huge scaling damage. Personally, I'm an absolute troll, so I use Brave Bird to delete enemy attackers from existence, but Fly's also quite decent actually, considering you have invincibility while using it. The only gripe I have of it is the really scuffed cooldown and a comparatively lower damage output. But then again, when you're invincible, there really isn't that much to complain about. Brave Bird lets you engage from a debatably shorter range compared to Fly, but it's excellent for ambushes with its massive radius, while Fly is used as a mobility tool, or an ability for single target damage due to its smaller AoE, and to cheese enemy Unite moves. Both have their respective strengths and weaknesses, notably Fly being less effective in terms of damage. However, they do have one common flaw: you only get one shot at your gank. Once you've exhausted Brave Bird and Aerial Ace combos, unless you're overleveled as hell, you won't be able to take on groups and you're just a sitting duck. So, you may ask, what's the easiest and most effective way to play this demon borb? And the answer to that question is, there isn't. Even though you're a novice class character, the skill ceiling for Talonflame is actually higher than it suggests. As you go further into Master Rank or just play a lot of standards, you'll find people that are willing to capitalize on any error, and you'll be shredded the moment you make a mistake and dive in at the wrong time. Taking Fly as an example, this move can be quite difficult if your enemies know how to position. You could get juked or chased to a go zone, or be completely unaware of your surroundings and dive into a crowd, having exhausted your main escape option and in the worst case, without your panic button. Therefore, what I'd say Talonflame comes down to is this thing: an impulse. You need to make that call by yourself and dive in when you think it's right. Since voice chat isn't a thing unless you're 5-stacking in a Discord call, but still, whether it's opening up your foes for a devastating sweep by your teammates, or dealing a coup de grace to whoever's unfortunate enough to walk into your range. And that requires this little thing called situational awareness, and it's not really that difficult to have, trust me. Okay, first stretch just spawned. I'm just gonna have to run in while two very unavailable teammates come in. The Wiggly just comes in singing. Alright, I'm gonna head out of there before the enemy Talon comes in and just deletes my Hooper from existence. I'm sorry, man. Well, Lapsy, you're just gonna get a Braper to the face. You ain't ganking nobody if you're dead. And the Talonflame, I don't care. I'm just gonna pop my O on you as soon as possible, and you're dead. Goodbye, goodbye. Wiggly tough, you're not getting away either. You're just gonna sing me to sleep. I honestly don't care. I've already won this fight anyway, and you're gone right now. Goodbye. That was annoying. I'm just gonna go and score like nothing happened. Okay, let me see what's going on. Oh, second rush just spawned. Okay, I'm gonna head out to the bottom lane, take the beast to get my Unite move back. Right, there it is. The Hoopa's coming and the Absol's coming. Oh, boy, you gotta get a folded in half, buddy. Sorry. Oh, okay, time to bot Unite move, and you're dead, Machamp, I guess. Sorry, man. Goodbye. Anyways, I'm just gonna leave for a time being. Then never mind. We're gonna go back to the beast again. He's gonna run away with his ult, and the Wiggly's gonna seem to sleep. And what the hell was that? That was auto aim. I'm sorry. Essentially, if you know what you're doing, Talonflame can clean up basically every single fight, even with Flame Charge Fly, which is quite awkward compared to Aerial Ace Bravebird. Unfortunately, it falls a few steps short of total greatness due to that. Flame Sweep is nothing but a panic button, Unite move edition. There is no legitimate reason to use it for damage when your normal combos outdo it, literally. However, it does pair nicely with the Crutch Shield, Body Barrier. And considering how fast you can pop your Unite move every minute, this makes up a crucial component of the score spam talent set, which, you guessed it, relies mostly on scoring to get a job done, then bolt out of there faster than anyone can say the words burn the goal zone twice. And speaking of score shields on Talonflame, they allow you to perform some of the nastiest early game stacks with attack rate, even though they're not as good as the Lucario's. This gets even easier when you swap out acrobatics for the evolution moves, considering you literally pop out of nowhere from your enemy's perspective, delete them, then score on their corpses. Okay, all this praise might make Talonflame sound a bit too busted, and for some people it might be, considering they literally pop up of nowhere, delete your existence, then proceed to win the game by scoring 300 points. But at the end of the day, it is still a speedster, a high-risk, high-reward character, and even the best speedster, in my opinion, isn't saved from consistency issues. When those ganks go wrong, be it from an eject button or bad aim, you'll have to take even more risks to make up for it. And considering the obnoxiously long startup of Fly and Bravebird, it does exacerbate the obvious issues inherent to Talonflame, notably its extreme lack of move flexibility. Whereas Absol and Gengar get to reduce the cooldown of their main damaging move, notably Night Slash or Pursuit or Dream Eater, Talonflame doesn't get to chain Bravebird, and it really does make ganking harder if the enemy team isn't a giant conglomerate. I know I'm biased, but all I'm saying is, while they can do that, Talonflame can't. And I feel like a lot of people try to accomplish that Herculean task and end up failing because they don't realize this limit. Oh, and need I mention the pain that is throwing out your Unite move and missing everyone you see. That's happened to everyone who's played Talonflame at least twice, and even with such a low value Unite move, it does feel like you've wasted so much. Thankfully, there's this little thing that applies in real life called patience, and it applies most effectively on ranged characters, but it also applies to Talonflame and every other character. The moment your enemy makes a move, you can predict where they might go before casting your move in real time. It works especially well with Talonflame considering how much damage Brave dishes out, while considering its massive radius, so there really isn't a small room for error at all. Meanwhile, Fly is just tracking your enemies around, so I guess that's a bit harder, but again, just by the same logic, and it doesn't really go wrong. It does revolve around reaction time, so it kind of is down to an impulse, but once you get the timing right, it hurts. As much as separated to Unite move, it does have its niches outside of scoring as well. There are few things more satisfying than taking some aim and barreling through the place, pushing your enemies around as a speedster. So go nuts throwing it around, but make sure to aim true before you do, because it can be incredibly punishing for your enemies to get yeeted right out of Zap Pit at 2 minutes, while face planting you into a wall with no one cutting its path isn't. Oh, and watch out for Dragons. As for the Zap fight, there are a few ways you can play it. First things first, do not try to sneak in 100 points at tier 2 to put your team at more of an advantage. Even if your high mobility allows you to be back in the Zap Pit faster than other characters, not to mention Talonflame's scoring animation, most enemies will focus their attention on the bird, and leaving the team fight to score during that time is gonna be no good for your team in general. Instead, assess the situation, see if anyone's initiating Zap or if there's going to be a massive team fight there soon before making that choice to dunk those points. Now I hear you asking, I'm a goddamn Talonflame, what am I supposed to do, rush in and die? Well, at the Zap Pit, there are a few things you can do. First, you can use your burst combos to target a squishy backline such as that Cinderace hanging in that bush or next to your enemy tank ready to see your Zap, or just straight up knock out their main damage character like a Gardevoir or a Koala. Another thing you can do is with your ult, you make for quite a good choke defender, being able to push any respawning enemies away from Zapdos, buying your teammates more time to take down the borb of Skillish. Oh, and speaking of ulting at the Zap Pit, Flame Sweep makes for an incredible engagement option, forcing the carry or their medic to pop their ult early to save their lives while you make an escape with your mobility moves or just completely iframe them with Fly. Of course, you can kill them to spite them further. Finally, you can secure Zap with Fly or Brave Bird, as they used to be some of the best secure options in the game and still are to this day. Now, true to the nature of a speedster, Talonflame thrives on ambushing any glass cannons or characters with low mobility, while struggling against bulkier Pokemon such as Blastoise and Slowbro that can shrug off its onslaught and retaliate with crowd control, with one either holding in place with what my friends call the Tekken command grab, while the other just committing Beyblade and ripping Talonflame's health apart. At the same time, Talonflame struggles with characters that have more mobility options, able to juke its Fly or Brave Bird before dashing back into seriously dented, including but not exclusive to Cinderace, Lucario, and more. Of course, you could always run the meta items like Focus Band to increase your survivability, or outright refrain from engaging with them and targeting easier frags like uniting Decidueye. You can also utilize the element of surprise to your advantage, notably hiding in a bush and waiting for them to just walk into your range. However, do be wary of bush-checking enemies like Cramorants or Gardevoirs. Now, it is niche, but you can use Fly to juke or bait out any enemy Unite moves, notably Zeraora's Plasma Gale or Pikachu's Thunderstorm. It is quite rare, but it's very satisfying to just simply watch your enemy waste their strongest burst. Wow, that was a lot to pump out. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end, but to reiterate, here's my points on why Talonflame is still one of the strongest characters in this power crept meta. High mobility and high damage. So, what can you do to get better at it? Well, just practice using it more and be really, really patient. Alright, wait, the last page got cut out? Wait, what the fuck?